So going back to the 90s, I was writing a column for the Globe and Mail, and I was an occasional guest on The Fan on different shows. I did Damien's show, Razor's Edge, a few times, and I'd done a show with Shulman, and Brent was the usual winger on primetime. If he wasn't around, I occasionally would come in. Not a natural deal for me. I didn't particularly enjoy it. It's fine for what it is, but yeah, not how I'd like to spend my free time.
But good exposure.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth. It didn't mean a heck of a lot to me. So this one show, the great man said, it was the time of Wayne Gretzky getting traded from LA to St. Louis. And so the great man said, could Wayne Gretzky... Oh, wait a minute.
And the great man is Bob McCown.
I gotta get into character.
Is that a nickname he's given himself? Okay, yeah, that's very good. That's very good. That makes now I'm glad I have the live stream on Periscope.
That's right. So the great man said, could Wayne Gretzky possibly think that by his going to a mediocre team like the St. Louis Blues, he elevates them to the status of a Stanley Cup contender? Could anyone have an ego that big? And I said, with an ego that big, he should go into sports talk radio.
Which is a funny line. That's a great line.
Well, the great man took offense that I would impugn the character of other sportscasters. And that got it was sort of like Ed Ames throwing the tomahawk on the Johnny Carson show. Right?
Yeah, I remember that.
It got that kind of laugh, but there was only Jim Shaky Hunt and Damien in the studio.
Oh, Shaky, yeah.
And so the great man did not say my name the rest of the show. And I was not invited back until, so that's 95?
Yeah, I was trying to think, because he goes to the Rangers
96.
After that. So it's about, I met 96,
96,
I guess, yeah.
Right. And so I got invited, like sort of with a gun to my head, in 2012, I guess. And it was the first anniversary of Jim Kelly's death. So I was asked to go do the show, and and Jim would have laughed his ass off about this because he knew this story and loved it, right? And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school. Jim wasn't the biggest fan of the great man either.
The great man.
But I felt obliged. I felt obliged to do it. So I went on, and I can't remember who the other smiling jackal was that was with McCown that day. But the great man said Jim had class. And I was pretty moved, right? And I said, no, it's not that Jim had class, right? Jim, class, you can get, you can make, you can acquire it, right? What Jim had was grace, right? And that's something that you can't get, right? Now, McCown just took this as you, plural. not necessarily how I intended it. So, anyways, I haven't been back. I don't see going back. I'm not sure sports talk radio is really going to take off.
I mean, there's definitely a list of some great broadcasters on it that are persona non grata, like not invited on to primetime.
But the funny thing is, like, it's their studio is right beside my office,
right? Because you work for Sportsnet,
right? And so I walk by there every time I go to the bathroom, and I do not press my nose up against the window. I will do anything within reason for Sportsnet, and I don't see myself as an asset for primetime sports.
Last week, I had Mr. Jerry Howarth on this show.
Okay? Yep.
And I asked him on the recording, when you were, because, Jerry had Rogers made a lot of noise about Jerry's retirement. Everything Rogers, I'm sure, did you write about it by any chance? I mean, but lots of people writing about it on lots of shows. Jerry Howarth, who had been calling games on that station forever, was retiring. And it was conspicuous by its absence that Jerry was never on primetime sports in this time. And I asked Jerry why he wasn't on primetime sports, and the answer, because Jerry he's a classy guy, but his answer was he was never asked. Like, he was never asked to go on primetime sports. And I mean, I can read between the lines. I wasn't born yesterday that Jerry's on this list too. Like, there's some great broadcasters in this city on the banned list, if you will.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know that I'm banned. I've just never been asked.
No, but it's the equivalent. I mean, you've never been asked. Jerry has never been asked.
No, I've only been asked when my friends have died. Too many of my friends are alive for me to go on.
Right. Interesting. Also, I'm friendly with Mike Wilner, who you made that joke about at TMLX2, which I think he has a good sense of humor, actually. But but he didn't contact you after that. You just saw his face after. I think I saw his face too, because I went, right, okay, well, how's Wilner going to react to this joke? And it was more of like, I saw him do, like, he mouthed the word ouch, like, ouch. But I don't think he took it too harsh. But
he did when he was on this show. What are you talking
did he?
about?
I can't remember. You would please remind me. I forget. Did he?
He said it was mean-spirited.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forget.
Yeah.
There's been so many Wilner appearances. I forgot.
You're glossing over this.
Real talk, but you have to remember the real talk.
Real talk at my end.
If I remember, right?
Damage control expenditures.
My point is, where am I going with this? That have you ever heard? I've never heard Mike Wilner on primetime sports in all his years. That seems conspicuous by its absence too. Like, there was a Blue Jay hype train of 2015 and 2016 when anyone who had anything to do with anything Blue Jays was on primetime sports, but Wilner was never on primetime sports. So it's interesting. Certain people are just not asked because they're on a list. That's all. I don't know anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and people have come and gone out of favor. I don't doubt that I was like a crappy guest. Probably. I don't know.
I mean, there's far worse guests than you, I hear, getting repeat performances on primetime sports. And I find you to be, maybe you're too clever for sports writing. Like, you're a sharp guy, interesting guy, good sense of humor. I think you're an ideal talk show host. Ideal guest for a talk show.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
Not sure. Not so sure about that. They're sure about it. That's for sure.
Well, and I do, as I recall, I had Brunt on, and Brunt was no longer on primetime sports at the time. And I asked Stephen Brunt, I said, Stephen, any chance you'll ever be back on primetime sports?
Never say never.
And no, he said, I think he might have said a never say never, but I think it was more of a, not likely. Like, it was really leaning on the whole, like, I'd be surprised.
You sure he hasn't been back since then?
Well, since then, he's been named as a co-host. So This is my point. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll hear you there again, but it doesn't sound like you actually want to go on that show. So
I don't think I'd be very good, because I don't think I really want to do it. So
maybe you'll replace Bobcat when he retires, and that'll be the big surprise.
I do have a good story about the Bobcat name.
Let's hear it.
Okay.
I'll bring this nice and down.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I remember I was doing a book for Random House, and my editor was handling a book that Bob McCown was doing with David Naylor, like 100 Ways I'm Going to Fix Hockey or something.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bob wrote that with Naylor and possibly read it, and but I remember my editor telling me, we were coming up with a campaign, and we want to use Bob in the promotion. And he said, I was thinking we could say, Bobcat says. And the great man said, no, I never refer to myself as Bobcat. That has been put on me by other people. I do not do that. And my editor said, oh, sorry, I'm sorry to offend.
Right.
And so the editor called the castle, and His Majesty wasn't at home, but Her Highness answered and said, no, Bob isn't here, but you can email him, right? And
yeah, I can't see. I just saw where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah. And he goes, okay, well, what email should I use? She said, it's Bobcat at...